and I can take it quickly. I'm going to do a bit of definitions of what is oil and gas. I am not going to dwell on only oil. Remember, I told you that the opportunity have moved on. So we now have gas opportunity, and we have a lot of it here. So I will do the definitions, then I will give you a brief history of oil and gas production in Nigeria. That is important. That is most of the information that we do not have around. I will just do the essence. I just take a bit of it, just to get you into the flair. Starting the definition, everybody hears petroleum. Petroleum is a fossil fuel. And I believe that the audience is cut across engineering and scientists, so you all understand fossil. Fossil is essentially something that over the years, when we are talking over the years, millions of years, had gone underground by what you call continuous layering of flooding, carrying vegetations. You will layer this year, next year it will come. That's why essentially you find it around delta area, and where you have rivers that flood. Actually, if those of you who have dealt with geology will know that it's the same floodplain that we have from the Atlantic Ocean up to the end of Anambra going into Kogi, because we all have seasonal flooding. But the second thing that makes hydrocarbon form is not just the flooding and the layering over the years, but if you have the kind of rock, formation that will bring this vegetation, keep them over the years, and various layers, especially layers that will be impervious, then it will be there, and over the years, pressure of additional layers and layers will then cook it. We use the word cook. It will then subject it to several chemical reforming or conditioning, and then you begin to have hydrocarbon. But the interesting thing is, for it to form, the rock formation, we have to trap it. So that's why if you find a reservoir, we normally will try to find the extent of the reservoir. It may be lengthy. You may have a reservoir that have extended 2 kilometers, 3 kilometers, and the hydrocarbon will always be on the sandy layer, but it must have been trapped, because if it's not trapped, then you won't have it in one place. So once you have the kind of rock that will give all these attributes, then you will have hydrocarbon. Some of the other rock that you know, the ones that you use for aggregates, you won't have hydrocarbon forming around them. So that's basically what you need to get out of this. It's naturally occurring in geological formation, like I've explained. It consists mostly of crude oil, natural gas, and bitumen. Natural gas is the lightest, going to crude of various specific gravities, and then going thicker to bitumen. That's how it is. It is natural composition because of the way it is formed. The liquid colors, because people are very fond of the liquid, which is the crude oil or the condensate. Their colors ranges from yellow, brown, green, and then black, or a combination of any of those. And then it can be refined into asphalt, reagents, and so on. Now, two important classifications we have in our production. You can have an oil well that produces predominantly oil. So we call it oil well. We complete it. We put the things that will complete it that are meant to produce oil. And these things are not, all of you are technical people, science, engineering, understand how the water well is. When you drill a water well, you case it. You use 0.5 or 4-inch casing. And then you send a 1-inch or 1.5-inch production pipe. If it's a sumo, it will carry the sumo pump in. If you have a pump on top, that pipe will go in and then you suck the water. That's exactly in principle. That's how the wells are in hydrocarbon production. But the one that produce oil, produce predominantly oil, and you may have some quantity of gas, depending on the reservoir. Now, that type of gas that comes with oil, we describe it as associated gas. Some of the reservoir, we have more of gas and little oil. At times condensate, because the lighter oil we call condensate. When you have such, we intentionally complete it as a gas well. Because gas is lighter, it moves faster. So the completion pipes we put in there are thicker, sometimes lined with chrome, with special materials to enable it to last for you. If you put ordinary carbon steel, the speed at which the gas moves, it will erode the pipes and you will have the well failing. The cost of doing a well is so high that you must put all your engineering thoughts for the well to be able to last for you. And this is a technology that has gone over the years. And this is where any of you that is an engineer or scientist should feel proud. Because the oil technology had endured over time. You may spend $30 million to do a gas well or $20 million to do an oil well, but at the end of the day, it's well worth it. I go to the water well again. If you spend a lot of money to do a water well and you get to a very good reservoir, the water well, if you are lucky, you get a genuine pump and everything. Your water well will run for so many years. So the cost you spent will pale into insignificance. This is exactly what we have in this case, so that you get the drift. Next slide. So I am continuing with definitions. Crude oil internationally is classified with the API gravity. API is American Petroleum Institute. They have a form of numbers they give to it. It's actually a specific gravity. It's inverse numbering. It's measured as a gravity against water. So anyone that is more than 10 is lighter than water and will be on top. The ones that is less than 10, if you put it with water, they will go under. So, and they also have a classification for sulfur content. The reason is because sulfur is the greatest nuisance you can get from a hydrocarbon. So anywhere you have sulfur, it is a complete different kettle of fish. So they want to know up front, anybody that wants to relate with you would like to know if you have any trace of sulfur in your crude. But we are so blessed in Nigeria that we do not have sulfur around here. And that's why every crude will have a peculiar characteristics which we describe as crude assay. This assay describes for you the components of the carbon-hydrogen splits. And so, like I said before, the light crude oil, they range from 36-degree API, which is the benchmark for burning light. Whenever you hear people describe burning light, it may interest you that the one we have in Anambra is actually lighter than burning light. Then we have the heavier crude, which is 25 API and below. Most of them we get from Venezuela. A few fields have gone close to that, but we don't so much have heavy crude in Nigeria. And like I said, it's low in sulfur, but rich in paraffinates, which is the CH combination. And then, I have talked about Anambra being light and sweet, just like all the other ones in Nigeria. Nigeria is actually Shell Dasi was the name it had when it was in combination with BP. And they have been around since 1937. Now, the implication of this, for those of you who do not know, is that they have actually mapped the entire country. They know anywhere you can find a trace of hydrocarbon. They know. For those of you who are busy and their lives, it takes time. You are all engineers. You understand what I'm saying. It takes time to acquire the seismic, to get the geological information, to do a test well, and then to plan your development. And this is the same journey that we are in. On top of the technical challenge is also the fact that you have to go to them to ask for money. Because I just want you people to get a feel of what is happening in the industry. So they tested wells and then they found oil in commercial quantity in Oloibri. You will understand what it means by commercial quantity. If you find traces of hydrocarbon, which you can produce, and in a week or two it dries up, it's not commercial. But when you begin to find reservoirs that can last for 1 year, 2 years, then you are in business. And it was until they found the Oloibri that they became comfortable. And if you look at the date, they have just found Oloibri. And then this same group want to secede, so that the discussion on how this cake will be shared will become complicated. So that's exactly what it is. And after Oloibri, the rest of the commercial finds they found were so good that each of the oil wells produces some 25 years, some 30 years. The first set of wells I worked on when I joined Shell had done 20 years, 25 years. Shell is even tired of some of them and are giving it to our brothers who are still running them. So if you think of how many years I spent in Shell and how many years I left Shell, some of these wells I worked in Kokori, in Yokri, they are still there. So this is what it is. So indeed, it's a good business. The Nigerian reserves are very good reserves, and I will talk to you about it as we progress. So there are more commercial finds in Afam and Bomu. Then all the other oil majors, because they are in collaboration. So once one gets an information, the other will come in and they share the spoil. Some of you are reading what is happening between Australia, US, and France. If you are not correct, please be looking at the news. You will understand what is going on there. So, the production started from Niger Delta, and over time, there are some challenges. Nigerian factors started to come in. The goose that lays the golden eggs are not getting anything from, so they got agitated, and security challenges were heightening. Even the governments were not behaving the way they should. So these guys now started looking for a different type of contract, because the initial contracts they had were all joint venture. Joint venture meant we produce this, we develop it together, produce it and share. So to do it together means I bring my money, you bring your money, and we share. But you know the story, the governing laws. Taxes, royalties, and contracts. We have been operating with Petroleum Act of 1969. It has been amended so many times. Part of the reason the PIB was put in place was because of so many amendments that have gone into the 1969 Act. And if you are an investor that is coming to invest long time, if your lawyer looks at the act and tells you that in 1 year, 2 or 3 or 4 amendments happens to the law, you will begin to ask, what are the amendments that will come in future? How will they affect the industry content development? That one is 2010. And then the PIB. The PIB was signed August 16 to make it PIA. It's now the Industry Act. It is meant to replace these other ones I mentioned above. But because oil and gas business is long-term business, somebody that had signed agreement with you on the previous law, you will give him time before you migrate him to the new one. So the BIA is in place, the other ones are still until most of the contracts are phased out. Already, and they are very near to established facilities. So if you are able to develop it, you will see where you can put either the crude or the gas. So they are quite attractive, but obviously, just like we have in all the problems of the country, the people that will be at the forefront, that will get all the connections, that will get most of this marginal field, may not have been prepared for it. They may be the ones that have the money at the time or connection at the time, and then they get it. When they get it, they tend to take 40 steps. Over 60% of these marginal fields are cut because of 40 steps that we are taking. But it's still a good option, it's a good policy for the government. Next slide. Right now, Nigeria is producing between 1.6 to 1.8 million barrels per day. It used to be 2.4, 2.5, but it's dwindled to this number. We should consider ourselves lucky that we are still doing this. So that's not a problem. But conservative crude oil reserve ranges from 30 to 40 billion barrels. And this is not going to be the end of story, because most of the reservoirs, especially the ones that have not been fully appraised, when you go into them, you will have the upside. That is, you will see more. So we will actually have around this number or more as we progress, because as they are dropping, the new ones are coming in. Okay? So we are ranked about the 10th in the world in terms of reserves. This is a fact. The US was formerly importing massively from us until they began to develop their shale oil. So it's giving them a lot more oil. They will cut down on imports. So Nigeria was affected. But what the US left became the gain of Indians and Chinese. So they took up their place. In the country, we have 4 refineries. They are all performing below par. I don't even know if that is how you describe it. I don't think it's the performance we should be talking about. We should be talking about our problems, the condition of the refinery. Even if you build a new one, what happened to those ones will happen. So, as part of key developments, we used to have very functional pipeline grid that is gathering all the crude we are producing. And the idea of developing them was to use pipeline to supply all these refineries. The condition of this gathering pipeline is your guess, as good as mine. We also have product supply pipelines. You know, if you notice, federal government intentionally built depots, strategic depots, and connected those refineries to the depots, including connecting these pipelines to Atlas code for import. But obviously, over time, the conditions are not nothing to write home about. We are currently importing heavily, and I don't even see us coming out of that scenario in a hurry. There was a very courageous attempt to do a 650,000 barrels. For those of us who are in this industry, we felt it was too aggressive. And we felt that certain things will not go right. But it's a private investment. We said it so many years back, and all of you are seeing it today. We cannot discuss it further because it's private. But there are challenges in doing such a size. Our friends, masters, colonial masters, will be very happy to encourage you to do that. If you look at the jingles on the telly, they will tell you that this is the largest single trade. Why are they not doing that size themselves? And then you go and start that site. That concept started initially 220, that is 2 times the size of Port Harcourt or Warri or Kaduna, which was fine. Then from there to 440, and I don't know how they got to this. Next slide. As part of development, we have export terminals. These ones are not around here, so people don't know about them. I'm even amazed that the MC was picking on that my aspect of skills. We were running these terminals. They are all offshores. Even if you go to the tip of the Atlantic, you won't see them. Some of them you will go 1 hour or 1.5 hours on chopper before you get there. That's how we were getting there in those days. If you are going on a flying boat, it will take you half a day. So it's not something you can see, but it's there. There are terminals. It was built that way because the vessels that carry crude oil are massive. They can't come to the coast. So they can get only to that limit because of the depth that their draft requires. And so they load from there. We have tanks and we have all the facilities. Shell had in Forcados and Bonny. There was a time I ran the 2 of them. Like I said, we have to be talking oil and gas. The current gas production ranges between 5 and 10 billion cubic feet of gas per day. Gas is measured in standard cubic feet. When you see SCF, either in millions or in billions. And then the reserves we have are in trillion cubic feet, standard cubic feet of gas. And we have as much. In fact, because of the reserve we have, Nigeria is actually blessed with the largest gas reserve in Africa. And like I said before, gas is the future. And for those of us who are from this area, we are also blessed with a lot of gas around here. We don't write these ones on the newspaper. We have a lot of gas. We have enough gas to keep this area busy with developments, revolving gas for another 50 years. So Nigeria is actually a natural gas producer with some oil accumulation. That's how you describe it. Because of lack of infrastructure and because it was not the focus of the multinationals, those gas that came out as associated gas were all fled. It was later on I have actually joined Shell when they started making conscious effort to harness the gas and use it. I was part of Kokori, Forcados, Yokri, and Utoro. I was part of those. So you are now harnessing gas to use the gas. Now, for us in Orient Petroleum, the good news is that economically, and I will tell you that when I get to Orient Petroleum slide. So some gas is still being fled, but gradually flaring is being traced down. Federal government played a role in this. They actually established the gas master plan. It's a carefully studied policy that enabled us to now add value to that. Previously, remember, we agreed from start that not everything you hear on this lecture that you will take outside this hall. We agreed. Yes. So, this policy promoted by majors, gas companies, and the Nigerian gas company resulted in so many infrastructure in place right now that we utilize gas. Government are also supporting all the gas businesses that are springing up for the flare out policy. They will not approve any development of oil for you, pipelines that have gone across Mediterranean, supplying Europe. So the future is very bright for gas. So next slide. Yeah. Let me try to give you an idea of how these oil and gas blocks are created. This is the way they create it in the Department of Petroleum Resources, DPR. And when they create it this way, they now allocate it. Government will allocate it. By law, it is only the Petroleum Minister that is empowered by law to allocate these blocks. And that is why most of the time, some of the presidents in this country will retain the portfolio. Before we go, let me point you to the ones that are for Orient Petroleum. This is the 915 and this is the 916. I will give you more closer pictures of them. These are the two blocks that we have as Orient Petroleum. Next slide. Yeah, so we are back to those two blocks. You can read it very clearly here. This is 915, this is 916. You can easily see that there are other blocks. And these red lines, if you can guess very quickly, is the boundary of Anambra State. Some of you are wondering why some wells were accredited to Anambra but kept on 50-50 with Kogi. Those wells are somewhere here. And this is Kogi. But in this country, everything is politics. Because there is also a well here that's even closer to the border. But that well was accredited to Kogi, not on 50-50. So let us move on. Next slide. So the key national economic impact of oil and gas, we are talking national. It accounts to be more than 60% government revenue. When your Vice Chancellor was reading his address, it used to be more than 60, but these days the other aspects are catching up with it, so it's dropping. But it's still providing 90% of our foreign earnings. So that is where the problems of exchange rates and so on and so forth. And then the budgetary revenue, the budget that's available to spend, is coming from there. But we have some key challenges. The prices of crude oil affects all of this. And then the investment that the big boys are able to make, then the insecurity and the production restrictions, that's something. All of that are challenges. Then in particular, we are not utilizing our refinery. If the refineries are still in good shape, the conditions are questionable. And then funding of the joint ventures, the EMP, Exploration and Production Joint Ventures, GVC, and access to funds, and then the contract processing delays. I particularly put this last phrase. Because if you are an investor and you come in here, you're partnering with federal government, one of your contracts may take 3 years before you will go to NNPC board and come out. But that's what we live with. But going forward, the international oil companies, that's the ones we call IOCs, they are divesting now from land and swamp, and they are going offshore. We talked about it before. Now, the interesting one is that gas is being monetized. This is a new development, and it's going to be interesting for all of us. And then, the federal government is promoting the indigenous participation. So that is what it is going forward. Next slide. I put this graph to illustrate for you that oil prices are something that fluctuates. It is not only in the recent time. This was captured from 1870s to the current period. So it has gone like that in the past, and it's going like that in the recent time, and it will continue like that. So don't be ruffled with fluctuations. Next slide. Processing plants will tap out of natural gas, and they are in liquid forms, and they are sold to factories that are using solvents, perfumes, aerosols, all those kind of. So we will be producing a lot of it here, and there are so many factories that will be buying them. Then LPG is your cooking gas, liquefied petroleum gas. So try to imagine when we begin to have more than enough of LPG for our consumption, instead of the current practice where everybody is queuing up in Lagos. Some people send trucks here, and they spend 3 weeks or 4 weeks in Lagos before it's their turn to load. Compare that to when they begin to get all their LPG here. So exciting times are waiting us. And then there is the CNG. CNG, you need to understand, is the one that we carry on the back of the trailer. You'll be seeing tubes, something like pipelines that are stacked on top of one another. 9, 12 of them. That is CNG. It carries the gas, it's compressed, carries it to a factory, and the factory can then install a gas gen instead of a diesel gen. The difference between a gas gen and diesel gen are miles away. A gas gen can serve you 15 years before you even think of maintenance. I wonder if you can get any diesel gen that will serve you continuously 12, 24 hours for 1 year without service. So, you know, and the gas gens are not messy. They don't wet oil or diesel all over the place. They just run, and you can have them, and they give you 24-hour service. And if you compare that with NEPA, I think you are even way, way ahead. And you cannot compare to this. This is far expensive. Then, gas-fired power plant will come. We have enough gas to also sustain supply to power plants. It will come to Anambra State. Orient Petroleum is going to do that. I will show you all of that. And you can start it even from a small range to a very big one, and you can expand very easily in modules. Then, when you have done the first phase and you stabilize, and you are making enough revenue, then you can step out and do the medium-term projects. You can begin to produce fertilizer, you know, and then you can do petrochemicals. You can also do, LNGs, mini LNGs. You can do all of that. You know, mini LNGs are also expandable in modules. So there are some that will target to supply the gas directly to factories, and they will do the pipeline. They will take gas from us or from any other producer around, and then take it to the factory. It's been done in Amara and some factory clusters in Ogun State. So all of that will be coming around here in the southeast. Next slide. So let's begin to talk about, showed you earlier, the map. And it's about 2,158 square kilometers. And there is going to be future acquisitions, but that is for the future. 915, we have done enough work in it. The federal government had now converted it to an oil mining lease. So it is now OML 155. The other one has been extended for 3 years for us to complete the planned work that we're doing there. And we are going to harness the oil and gas resources for the development of the state, the southeast region, and the country. We are establishing a refinery. This refinery is being established at a land that is jointly owned by Umueri and Nsubo. We always emphasize that it's jointly owned. And most of you will know where this is. We have sourced the equipment. We are looking for money. Once we bring it down, you have your refinery. It will happen. We are also promoting establishment of gas processing plants because that is the immediate thing to do. If I tell you a little story, when we successfully, anybody had used the road from Ifitogware going up to Omasi. Once you cross Umweje and you look on your left, you will be surprised what you will see. The size of this gas plant is like the size of a standard small size refinery. We have it in Anambra. The gas-fired power plant had been designed and also acquired in the US, waiting for us to complete payment and we bring down the turbines. This one is closer home. The power plant will be behind this Nnamdi Azikiwe University at Akuezumba. And we are starting with 100 megawatts. So try to imagine if Nnamdi Azikiwe University is connected to this power plant. You will have continuous power because these are gas turbines. They run endlessly and we will acquire them so that you have some duty, some standby. So at all times you have power. This is not rocket science. It's something that will happen very soon. It's in the works. So more than anything else, these things we are starting with a certain size. We are going to be expanding them as we are developing the field. I want you to understand this. We are not going to make the same mistake. So we are starting the power plant at 100 megawatts. One well will supply that. The second well is coming. We are seeing the success of the field development, so we can call for more turbines. Additional 1 or 2 more turbines will take it to 250 megawatts and drill more wells and we take it to 500. This will happen to all of us. And this is better, it's a better way than going for 500. Because you need to learn the ropes. And more importantly, we don't say these things on the pages of the newspaper. We don't make noise about these things. Those of us who have been old enough will know that there are certain noises you will make, then you begin to have problems. So, as we are doing this, try to imagine the skills acquisition that will come. Try to imagine what it will do to this university. Because the demand for the skills will start from this university. I took a very positive note of your Vice Chancellor saying that there is plan to bring in petroleum engineering. You will also branch it to power. You will do all of this because the skills have to be created. processing plants will trap out of natural gas, and they are in liquid forms, and they are sold to factories that are using solvents, perfumes, aerosols, all those kind of. So we will be producing a lot of it here, and there are so many factories that will be buying them. Then LPG is your cooking gas, liquefied petroleum gas. So try to imagine when we begin to have more than enough of LPG for our consumption, instead of the current practice where everybody is queuing up in Lagos. Some people send trucks here, and they spend 3 weeks or 4 weeks in Lagos before it's their turn to load. Compare that to when they begin to get all their LPG here. So exciting times are awaiting us. And then there is the CNG. CNG, you need to understand, is the one that we carry on the back of the trailer. You'll be seeing tubes, something like pipelines that are stacked on top of one another. 9, 12 of them. That is CNG. It carries the gas, it's compressed, carries it to a factory, and the factory can then install a gas gen instead of a diesel gen. The difference between a gas gen and diesel gen are miles away. A gas gen can serve you 15 years before you even think of maintenance. I wonder if you can get any diesel gen that will serve you continuously 12, 24 hours for 1 year without service. So, you know, and the gas gens are not messy. They don't wet oil or diesel all over the place. They just run, and you can have them, and they give you 24-hour service. And if you compare that with NEPA, I think you are even way, way ahead. And you cannot compare to this. This is far expensive. Then gas-fired power plant will come. We have enough gas to also sustain supply to power plants. It will come to Anambra State. Orient Petroleum is going to do that. I will show you all of that. And you can start it even from a small range to a very big one, and you can expand very easily in modules. Then when you have done the first phase and you stabilize and you are making enough revenue, then you can step out and do the medium-term projects. You can begin to produce fertilizer, you know, and then you can do petrochemicals. You can also do, LNGs, mini LNGs. You can do all of that. You know, mini LNGs are also expandable in modules. So there are some that we target to supply the gas directly to factories, and they will do the pipeline. They will take gas from us or from any other producer around, and then take it to the factory. It's been done in Amara and some factory clusters in Ogun State. So all of that will be coming around here in the southeast. Next slide. So let's begin to talk about, showed you earlier, the map. And it's about 2,158 square kilometers. And there is going to be future acquisitions, but that is for the future. 915, we have done enough work in it. The federal government had now converted it to an oil mining lease. So it is now OML 155. The other one has been extended for 3 years for us to complete the planned work that we're doing there. And we are going to harness the oil and gas resources for the development of the state, the southeast region, and the country. We are establishing a refinery. This refinery is being established at a land that is jointly owned by Umueri and Nsubo. We always emphasize that it's jointly owned. And most of you will know where this is. We have sourced the equipment. We are looking for money. Once we bring it down, you have your refinery. it will happen. We are also promoting establishment of gas processing plants because that is the immediate thing to do. If I tell you a little story, when we successfully, anybody had used the road from Ifitogware going up to Omasi, once you cross Umweje and you look on your left, you will be surprised what you will see. The size of this gas plant is like the size of a standard small size refinery. We have it in Anambra. The gas-fired power plant had been designed and also acquired in the US, waiting for us to complete payment and we bring down the turbines. This one is closer home. The power plant will be behind this Nnamdi Azikiwe University at Akuezumba. And we are starting with 100 megawatts. So try to imagine if Nnamdi Azikiwe University is connected to this power plant. You will have continuous power because these are gas turbines. They run endlessly and we will acquire them so that you have some duty, some standby. So at all times you have power. This is not rocket science. It's something that will happen very soon. It's in the works. So more than anything else, these things we are starting with a certain size. We are going to be expanding them as we are developing the field. I want you to understand this. We are not going to make the same mistake. So we are starting the power plant at 100 megawatts. One well will supply that. The second well is coming. We are seeing the success of the field development, so we can call for more turbines. Additional 1 or 2 more turbines will take it to 250 megawatts and drill more wells and we take it to 500. This will happen to all of us. And this is better, it's a better way than going for 500 because you need to learn the ropes. And more importantly, we don't say these things on the pages of the newspaper. We don't make noise about these things. Those of us who have been old enough will know that there are certain noises you will make, then you begin to have problems. So, as we are doing this, try to imagine the skills acquisition that will come. Try to imagine what it will do to this university. Because the demand for the skills will start from this university. I took a very positive note of your Vice Chancellor saying that there is plan to bring in petroleum engineering. You will also branch it to power. You will do all of this because the skills have to be created. Now, how can aviation kill mess up all that you have planned? Whereas an airport can be developed with $30 million. I was part of those that developed Usubi, so I know exactly what I'm saying. Usubi worry. So Usubi airport. And somebody again will tell you, a reporter will tell you, if you develop airport, it's not economical. It's not true. Quote me. We developed Usubi. The reason Usubi cost us close to 30 million was because we used Julius Berger, number one. Number two, the land was soggy. So we had to dredge sand. And we layered the runway 4 meters and left it for a year before Julius Berger now trimmed 2 meters out of it and made the runway. That was what brought the cost. But the import of my story is that in less than 2 years of operating Usubi, with 2 flights or 3 flights a week, we recovered the money in share. Because every flight that lands there pays for landing. And every ticket of a percentage goes to that airport. This is exactly what we come to Anambra here. So part of our business focus, part of our business focus to create value for all stakeholders, both community, state, union, and of course the investors. There is something that you can treasure, something you can pass to it. The benefits will come. It may take a while, but it will surely come. Next slide. Perspectives. We have done seismic. We have acquired 500 out of 640 we set out to acquire. And we have processed and interpreted 225 out of that same 640. We have re-entered Anambra River well. That is the well that President Jonathan came to commission then. We entered it successfully. It is now in OML 155 because it's converted. And that well, that single well, tested 2,000 barrels per day of oil. And we have further tested one of the strings, and it was making 10 million standard cubic feet of gas. So from this single well, we are supplying the Omasi gas plant. We are telling the promoter of Omasi gas plant, please bring your expansion. Because we enter the next well, we will have enough gas to give him in the expanded phase. Okay? So we are drilling Anambra River 4 and 5 at various levels of completions. We had some issues on them, but this is what you see in our business. So there are various levels and we are working on them. We are planning to re-enter a well that Shell drilled in Alo. Alo is 916. Alo is actually nearer you here. It is only separated from this area by the Ezu River. Once you cross Ezu River, you are in Alo field. And Alo field is a huge gas field. The power plant will take its gas from there. So I'm not telling you something Greek. I'm trying to relate with actuals. So the same way we are re-entering a well that is already drilled as Anambra River 2. That well had cut across reservoirs that are rich in gas. So we will enter, complete it, and provide additional volume for the Omasi gas plant. Are you getting the logic now? Yes. That one is in 915 or 155. And then we plan to drill additional wells, Anambra River 6, 7, 8 in OML 155, and we will quickly drill a second well in Alo. We call it Alo 2. The beauty of Alo is that Shell, who was the former holder, studied all those things, drilled Alo 1 successfully. We had the data, we have the report. And they prepared a location to drill Alo 2 before their interest moved further south. They focused on Niger Delta. Now it is for Orient. So when we enter the Alo 1 and stabilize it, we will go to the Shell location in Alo 2 and drill it. So when we say fast track, that's what we mean. We just go there and do it. And the supply of gas to Cotton Wooding, the name of the company for Omasi gas plant is Cotton Wooding. So we are going to continue to give them from ANA 1 and expand their supply with ANA 2. Remember, these are key activities of Orient Petroleum. We are targeting to produce about 10 to 15,000 barrels in a day. I mean, in a day, yes? Once we get funding, but within 9 to 12 months of work, once we get funding. And then gas will develop between 80 and 100 million standard cubic feet per day, once we get funding, within 9 to 12 months. It is easy We don't think it's so complicated. Allo, being a gas well, we give you 30 or 40 million one way. So we have Allo 2, we're almost at that 80. Before you add Anna 2 and so on. And then once we move the development further, from 13th to 24th month, we will try to get to 15 to 25,000 barrels. And then we get to 100 and 150 million SCOF, standard cubic feet. Now, if you can do this little mathematics, if Anambra State is producing any of this, because when Orient is producing, it is Anambra is producing. And don't worry so much about the 50-50. The wells that will do this are not in the 50-50. You know, some of these things, if you don't know, the struggle for the well, you know, because President came to commission, so much struggle. We were attacked there. You know, our rig was bombed. The head of safety, I think he's here, of Orient Petroleum. He's there. You know, so we know these things. We've done it for power plant. We've done it for refinery. We've done it for the processing plant. We continue to do it. So the land titles and leases, we have done our best. You people know that land matters are not settled in one day. We continue to relate. So we have the titles, we have the land, we have the lease. So this is where the two blocks are in the Nigerian map. This is the two blocks. And these are the three wells that are near the border. You can see them. This is the one we re-entered, Anambra River 1. 2 is here, 3 is there. So if you come down this way on the boundary of Anambra, if you follow my pointer, there is a well here. And nobody's talking of sharing it, but it's okay. So these are the things about this. If I have another map where I will show you some little incursions.